Do you need help to overcome things in your life? Then look to God. God is a God of victory. And that's what Psalm 76 is saying. My name is Gray. I'm going through the whole book of Psalms. Like I said, today we're in chapter 76, and we're just celebrating God's victorious hand. So Psalm 76 is written by Asaph, who was a music leader at the time of David. So let's jump in and see what we can learn about God being victorious. God is renowned in Judah. That's the first verse. In Israel, his name is great. His tent is in Salem. His dwelling place is in Zion. So the psalmist starts writing by establishing who God is. That number one, he is known in Judah. And in Israel, God's name is great. He says his tent is in Salem. Salem was the old name of Jerusalem. So all of this, the first verse is just establishing that here in Israel, in Judah, we know who God is and we have seen his majesty. And the reason why I've seen his majesty is what he says in verse 3. He says, there he broke the flashing arrows, the shield, and the swords, and the weapons of war. He says, there we have seen him crush our enemies time and time again. And that's why God's name is known in Israel. He goes on to explain that he is radiant with light, more majestic than mountains rich with game. When he said mountains rich in game, the image that came to me is like of the wilderness migration in the Serengeti, or wherever it is. You can see how big and wonderful and majestic. It just looks amazing. But God is much more majestic than that, because he is the one that rises up and destroys our enemies, as it said in verse 3, that he broke the flashing arrows. Verse 5 talks about the valiant lie planted, those who thought they were strong. Those are the ones that God will destroy. It says, not one of the warriors can lift his hands. Stop right there. That's verse 5. In our lives, we always need someone to stand by us and help us, especially when the strong man comes, when we are faced with situations that are too big for our own. This chapter is celebrating God's victorious right hand, that at every time he always comes through for the nation of Israel. And we can, as Christians, we can take that promise to be us as well. I love what verse 6 says. It says, at your rebuke, God of Jacob, both horse and chariot lie still. Now, you and I can relate to this, because at your rebuke is at when God speaks. But we know that God has given us a name that is above every other name, that at that name, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. And this is what he's saying from verse 6 to verse 9. He's just saying that when God speaks, horse and chariot lie still. Those are the things that they consider to be the greatest of the mightiest of war weapons. Now we've got so many. I'm not talking about nuclear weapons. That's a bit, yeah, but I'm talking about that. But we can also look at it in our personal lives. What it is that we think that is greater than anything else that disturbs us the most. This verse reminds us that when God speaks, even those things will fall. From verse 8 it says, from heaven you pronounce judgment, and the land feared and was quiet. When God proclaims his judgment is his wrath. Everything will stand still and everything will obey. So surely everything will obey. Verse 10 says, surely your wrath against mankind brings you praise. It says when God is mad, when God is angry and he proclaims his judgment, two things happen. Number one, the wicked will perish. And because the wicked will perish, the righteous will rejoice. When God lets out his wrath, the people will always rejoice, because God is a God of justice. So then, if this God is a God that always comes through for us, if this God is a God that when he speaks, even the mightiest of armies and men have to bow down and acknowledge him, why then do you and I not acknowledge him? And that's what verse 11 is saying. It says, make vows to the Lord your God and fulfill them. Let all the neighboring lands bring gifts to the one to be feared. The gifts that are talking about is just acknowledging God in our lives. When we have victories, when we have overcome situations and circumstances, he say, let us bring praise to God. Let's give him a sacrifice of thanksgiving to honor him, because he is the one that brings us victory. So, you need victory. God is there, because he has always and is and will always be a God of victory, especially to those that trust and look to him. God bless you.